The Florida Panthers were very slow to start in the first and second period, and it proved them costly on their Thursday night game against the Toronto Maple Leafs. On today's show, we are going to discuss whether these two straight regulation losses have are is now too little too late for the Panthers to go on a run to make the postseason on today's edition of the show.
You're Locked On Panthers, your daily podcast on the Florida Panthers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome into this Friday, March 24th edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. Thank you for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. I'm Armando Velez, and you can follow me on Twitter at MondoMan12. Follow the show account on Twitter at LO_FLA Panthers. Don't forget to send in your screenshot of your subscription to the Locked On Florida Panthers YouTube channel and your 5-star rating on whichever podcast app you listen to the show for your chance to win 2 free tickets to the Florida Panthers versus Toronto Maple Leafs game on April 10th. Best of luck, everybody. It's funny how I mentioned that matchup, the second matchup coming up for the Florida Panthers and the Toronto Maple Leafs as far as the giveaway for tickets, and we're recapping a huge dud for the Florida Panthers. Lose 6-2 to Toronto. Their first set of back-to-back losses in regulation since December 30th and January 1st going into the new year. And it's a big backbreaker, and it hurts even worse the fact that the Florida Panthers lost to Philadelphia Flyers on Tuesday night, where the Flyers were opportunistic. But back to the drawing board for this Panthers team. But it is a Fairbanks Friday edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. It is my colleague, formerly of PantherParkway.com, Nick Fairbanks. He is back on the show. Nick, what's the word, man?
It makes Tuesday's game sting a little bit more, and just reminding ourselves again of every show that we talk that Florida does not seem to beat the teams that they need to beat, especially the lottery teams. So you got Philadelphia, Columbus, Arizona, and stuff like that. And, didn't expect to win tonight, but I did not expect them to play the way that they did. And, we got to hope for a better effort against the Rangers, who are the hottest team in the NHL.
Yeah, and we spoke about how the Florida Panthers, the majority of the games that they'll be facing off against playoff teams will be at home. And, you drop this first one at home against Toronto on Pride Night for the Florida Panthers, and awesome jerseys that the Florida Panthers had for the night. And, of course, we've known the stories all around the NHL about certain teams decide not to wear them, like the Rangers, the Blackhawks, former Panther James Reimer not wearing one due to religious beliefs, and then it all started with Ivan Provorov. But of course, no, we can't expect, just because this is the team that we cheer for, that the Panthers are gonna. This won't happen to the Panthers neither. So Eric Staal and Marc Staal decide not to wear the Pride Night jerseys for the Florida Panthers. I do disagree with their stance. I do think the whole religious belief is a little cherry picked and rooted in homophobia, in my opinion. But at first I was focused on that, but at the same time, I do also want to focus on the people who did wear it. 18 out of 20 players who dressed tonight wore it, and that's 90%. And that is a lot further than where we were years ago, as far as this sport as well. And I do want to applaud the Panthers who decided to wear it, and the people who did, who are looking to be allies as far as people in the LGBTQ plus community. Your thoughts on Pride Night for the Panthers?
Well, Sergei Bobrovsky is certainly not scared of going back to Russia, wearing a Pride jersey. So I would think Evgeny Dadonov, same thing. Barbashev, same thing. Just kind of puts cold water on, the excuses that organizations are going to put as far as not wanting to be celebrating or be a part of this. It's one thing for somebody to make a decision, and they're free to do that and everything, but they're not outside of criticism. So that's my thoughts on it. I think we're trying to be more of an inclusive league. And as long as there are people who do not believe in those type of initiatives, then they don't represent the sport, and they don't represent what it means to bring people together. So I'll just leave it at that, and won't go off on another tangent because you probably get myself in trouble.
We have more tangents to go on probably as well the rest of the show in relation to how the Florida Panthers played as well. So, it's not the lightest of moods here on today's show. For, of course, the 6-2 loss puts a little bit more salt on the wound as far as everything. But Nick, two straight periods for the Panthers coming out for this team. I mean, it really didn't take until the 10-minute mark for the Florida Panthers to really generate a whole bunch of opportunities. They ended up with more shots on goal for the game, but when it was like 16-16, there was a point where the Maple Leafs shot attempts were like more than 10 than what the Panthers had. The Panthers were not generating anything out of the neutral zone. They weren't winning any. They weren't winning their board battles. Of course, another too many men on the ice penalty for the Panthers. It's happened quite a few times, and we've also seen a bit of line changes too, like quite a bit of line changes. You see Matthew Tkachuk go to the top line. Anton Lundell is the 4C. Duclair goes up to the second line, and then Nick Cousins goes up to the fourth. All this juggling. Of course, let's not forget that the Panthers were without Sam Bennett again. He took the ice this morning, tried giving it a go, and left early after morning skate. So we knew as of this morning that he wasn't going to play. But tall task going up against two elite centers in Matthews, Tavares. Matthews gets 2 goals, and Tavares loves playing the Panthers, get 3 primary assists. He was consistently driving play. I believe he also drew a penalty in the game as well, if I'm not mistaken. But just those guys skating through the zone so easily, and the Florida Panthers continuing to be out of position. And of course, the Maple Leafs score on a 5-on-3, and with the league's second best power play, that's not a team that you want to be down 5-on-3.
On that note, because I agree with everything you just said, I think they said on the telecast that this was possibly Toronto's first 5-on-3 of the season.
Yep, that's correct.
Are you kidding me? Okay. That's an amazing stat to me that has happened, and it took so long into the season for that to happen. But I just don't think Florida came to play. They did not win any of their battles, or most of their battles. There was not a lot of support. I just feel like forwards were not coming down, clamping down, and helping. You could say that on I'm not going to say that on the Bunting goal, because Bob, oh man, he made a beautiful save. And then just unfortunate that Gudas decided to try to go to the post and leave him wide open. But it just seemed like there was a lot of turnovers. We couldn't get out of our own defensive zone. Couldn't really get anything off in the neutral zone. It seemed like only 2 lines were able to do that. That was probably the first and probably maybe the third or fourth that were able to do that. But it just seemed like everybody else was kind of stuck in the mud. My boy Anton Lundell has had a rough ride of it, so far, and he got demoted, and rightfully so. He's not handling the puck. He's not making wise decisions right now, and the team needs offense right now. And in a game like this against Toronto, you need to take advantage of everything that you've got in front of you. And they couldn't tonight. They couldn't generate anything. You mentioned that they had the shot advantage. Well, it's easy to do that when you're shooting from the outside and they give you nothing inside and there's no rebounds. Matt Murray played well tonight. He almost only had a 1 goal against game. If that wasn't, overturned, which, was very close.
Very close.
He would have had a fantastic game. But the last 2 games, Florida just didn't bring the work boots. They didn't want to work for it. And, you have the Rangers team that's coming in, and we're going to see what this team's made of. We're hoping that Pittsburgh right now is losing, or at least will lose their game, and we'll still be 1 point out. So maybe it's not all doom and gloom, but this is a playoff run, and you gotta put your best foot forward.
Yeah, and we actually do have an update on the Penguins game as I have it on my phone as we are chatting here. We're gonna actually discuss that next in the second segment, but we're gonna also talk about the continuous breakdowns that the Florida Panthers had on Thursday night against the Toronto Maple Leafs. We're gonna discuss that next here on the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. But first, we're gonna tell you all about Indeed. If you're hiring, you need Indeed, because Indeed is the hiring partner where you can attract, interview, and hire in all places. Instead of spending hours on multiple job sites hoping to find candidates with the right skills, you need one powerful hiring partner that can help you do it all. Indeed partners with you on every step of the hiring process with great talent through time-saving tools like instant match assessment and virtual interviews. Indeed makes it easy to hire great talent according to ComScore. Indeed is the #1 job site worldwide, and Indeed delivers 4 times more hires than all sites combined, according to Talent Nest. Start hiring right now with a $75 sponsored job credit to upgrade your job post at Indeed.com/lockedon. Offer valid through March 31st. Go to Indeed.com/lockedon to claim your $75 credit before March 31st. Indeed.com/lockedon. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed. Segment number 2 here on this Fairbanks Friday edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, where the Florida Panthers lose to the Toronto Maple Leafs by a final score of 6-2 at home. Back-to-back regulation losses for the Panthers. But let's just talk about some of the goals that the Panthers gave up to the Toronto Maple Leafs. I mean, first shot, Austin Matthews from the faceoff circle beats Bobrovsky far side. But the second one is the most frustrating one of the Matthews goal, because you see him take it behind the net, and you see Gudas going for a poke. But when that was happening, you know what I was yelling, Nick? I was yelling, body, as Matthews was taking it around, and there wasn't a Panther around maybe 3 feet away from Austin Matthews, and then he just wristed it and then gets it past Sergei Bobrovsky. The Nylander goal, John Tavares, we spoke about, of course, how he loves playing the Panthers. 3 primary assists, driving to the net, and then the Toronto Maple Leafs poking it in, and then Nylander gets the goal on that one. And you talk about getting all the shots on goal, but the perimeter, look what the Florida Panthers were doing differently versus what the Maple Leafs were doing differently. Mm-hmm. Crazy to think, huh?
Definitely is, and you could definitely tell who was in the driver's seat of this game just based on where the puck was going and where the pucks were actually getting to. So, I've never given much respect to Austin Matthews, just because we're here in South Florida, and we kind of have a thing against the elite up in Canada, but he showed me tonight that he is committed to the two-way game. I mean, there was a couple times where he hit Luostarinen. He lifted up his stick on a scoring chance, came back and picked somebody's pocket and everything, and then took the puck down the other end of the ice, and just seemed like he's really committed to playing a full 90-foot game. But the first goal, can't blame Bob. He was perfectly screened. Second one, as you were saying, Gudas was there, and you're saying body. Well, that's kind of what we have Gudas here for, but he's not going to be able to hit everybody. I wish Florida would have played a more physical game tonight, because, if people don't know this already, Skill doesn't like to get hit. Maybe put a hit on Marner, put a hit on Nylander, put a hit on Matthews, get them out of their game, because I'll guarantee you once they get hit, everybody's going to be flying in to try to defend their guy and everything, but at least they know that we're there and that they're going to be, it's going to be a tough time for them. So, and then the third goal is just, again, Tavares down by the blue paint and everything. That's where he works. And, Florida Panthers will remember 2016 fondly of that.
Yeah, and no doubt with that. And it's funny because the Panthers did lead the hit category total, but I didn't really see hits that were like puck separating, finishing checks that would cause the Florida Panthers to go the other way on a rush to put pressure on Murray. And Murray was starting this game because Ilya Samsonov was on paternity leave due to the birth of his child. He had an .887 save percentage in the last 3 games. So it's like, cool, an opportunity to take advantage of this matchup for the Florida Panthers in this. But just when you're consistently trapped in your own zone, and I mean, we know how fast of a team this Toronto Maple Leafs team is. But like you said, the one that Michael Bunting had to make it 4-2. That was the 5-on-3. Man, you spoke about how Bobrovsky, it looked like that he made a great save there, and then just a little bit crossed up, going high, anticipating the shot high, and then that 5-hole was just open for Sergei Bobrovsky in that one. But man, it really didn't take until the third period for the Florida Panthers to really get a little bit of a jump on. They actually, of course, look what happened in Philadelphia when they were down. They had a lot of energy coming out of that third period as well, and it happens far too often where you're waiting until the third period to have that energy moving again for this Florida Panthers team, and it's just why couldn't we see that in the first 2?
They're playing like they did last year in a way, if you think about it. So how many comeback from behind wins did they have? I mean, it seems like the first period, they'll play relatively even or play even better. Second period, they'll lull and try to conserve their energy and not put too much effort into it. And then in the third period, just, run the train off the rails and everything. But, you can't win that, all the time. It's not going to be consistent, and it's not something that, playoff teams should be doing. So I will say this about the Bunting goal. Outside of Bobrovsky making that amazing save, which he was the best penalty killer tonight, I don't think Bunting got all of that. I think Bob did read it right, and it was going to go high, and I think it just came off of Bunting's stick a little bit to where it didn't go airborne, and it just went 5-hole on him. I don't think he was trying for a 5-hole at all.
Yeah, and sometimes you get crossed up, and sometimes when you're down 5-on-3, sometimes you might overthink a few things there. But I did see quite a few scoring chances from Anthony Duclair. I think he was getting passes more on the tape here and there. I mean, him and Etulis-Torreira, they were like a tic-tac-toe play that he had right in the slot. But man, the sticks, there were so many sticks there. You mentioned it earlier on how there was a back check of Austin Matthews where it was just a swing and a miss on Etulis-Torreira and right in the mid slot. And then there was another opportunity where there was tic-tac-toe with Duke and Etu, and then you just see the Maple Leafs consistently there to break it up. I mean, after the second period, Corsi 4 was 36-27, but the Florida Panthers had more shots on goal. So just goes to show how opportunistic the Maple Leafs were. And of course, when you're getting in front of the net as well, that's definitely going to help your percentages of actually scoring goals. I mean, the goal by Tkachuk, crazy angle that he had there. I mean, thanks to that review, and could have argued that there could have been a goal earlier when Jake McCabe pushed Matthew Tkachuk into Matt Murray as well. Could have argued that. And also a great pinch by Josh Mahura to get it back into the zone. Barkov finds Nick Cousins and then backhands it past Matt Murray, top shelf. But also when the Toronto Maple Leafs spending a lot of time in their own zone, in the Panthers zone, and then you see Marc Staal drawing a little bit too much, just like we discussed in the game against Philly, and then Reinhart defensively a little bit late to get to Alex Kerfoot, and he's just right there to get it past Sergei Bobrovsky as well, and that basically put the game out of reach. And for the even though it was over, Randy Moeller did talk about how when the Panthers were pulled Sergei Bobrovsky for the extra attacker, about how when they're down 5-3, they're spending too much time passing in the perimeter instead of just trying to get some quality chance up front. And of course, one fumbling of the puck ends into the empty net goal. So just a frustrating night overall, but also just a lot of overthinking for this Panthers team.
Yeah, and you could probably equate that to how their power play started. Early in the season, there was a lot of perimeter play. Not a lot of guys were moving, and their set plays were already figured out. I mean, they should have thought of something different, or at least try to get shots from the point, because trying to go down low was not going to work. It only worked with Tkachuk getting that ridiculous angle shot to go in, and then Nick Cousins with a beautiful backhand when he got free. But everything else, as you said, there were sticks in the lanes. They were not letting anything in to the slot or to get to Matt Murray. And sometimes if you're going to play that perimeter game, you just got to fire shots. Stop passing it around to get the perfect angle or the perfect shot. Because as I know, and I grew up listening to this, and all Florida Panthers fans should know, Dennis Potvin always said the best pass was a rebound. And if you're going to clog up the net and everything, you got to have one or two guys there ready, and that's what we brought Tkachuk in for. And you have other players like Reinhardt that could definitely tip it and cause possibly a goal, or at least get something on Murray. So I think that again, in this day's game, they just try to be too perfect, and unfortunately it just didn't work out tonight.
Yeah, and great insight from, of course, the Hall of Fame defenseman and former Panthers color analyst Dennis Potvin. And a few notes for the Panthers as Matthew Tkachuk on a 7-game point streak. The Florida Panthers did get 7 straight games with a power play goal. Montour points in 8 of the last 10, and 1 more point from tying Keith Yandel's record for most points for a defenseman, and 2 more until he passes Keith Yandel. And it's a tough one tonight for this Florida Panthers team. So it's crunch time for this Cats team as they lose back-to-back games. This might have been a no harm, no foul type of game if they took care of business on Tuesday night against Philadelphia. But we're going to transition over to segment number 3, where we're going to give a scoreboard update on Dallas Stars versus Pittsburgh Penguins. By the time this airs, we'll know the final score, but we'll discuss it as it's going on live, as we are reacting to it, and of course talk about what the Panthers will need to do the rest of the way, and of course prepare for the New York Rangers. We're going to discuss that next here on the show, but first we're going to tell you all about FanDuel Sportsbook. And the tournament is heating up. There's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. That's because right now FanDuel is giving new customers a no sweat first bet up to $1,000. It's up to $1,000 in bonus bet if your first bet doesn't win. Go to FanDuel.com/lockedon and sign up today to claim your no sweat first bet. Then you wager on everything from the money line, point spreads, on which team will be cutting down the net. All on the app that's safe, secure, and easy to use. Don't miss your shot at a no sweat first bet up to $1,000 when you join FanDuel today. Go to FanDuel.com/lockedon to sign up. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the Locked On Podcast Network. Segment number 3 here on this Fairbanks Friday edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, where the Florida Panthers drop to the Toronto Maple Leafs by a final score of 6-2 at FLA Live Arena. So as we speak, Nick, the Pittsburgh Penguins and the Dallas Stars are tied at 1 in the second period. Of course, the Pittsburgh Penguins got a big win against Colorado on the road last night on TNT. Can't focus too much. Can't rely. That's the right word. Too much on other teams losing, and we were thinking when Jacob and I were talking and say, okay, the Penguins have to drop one of these 2 games, and of course they set a great tone on Wednesday night, and of course currently tied. Anything can happen. Of course, by the time we're done with the show, the game won't even go final yet. So, but the Panthers to have a chance to give themselves an opportunity, it's going to be need to be like an 8-2-0 stretch in the next 10. Their best stretch just came out of 6-0-1. And that has me a little worried, because we hadn't seen that Panthers team until that point. And these are the only 2 these last two regulation losses are not only the only regulation loss in the calendar year of 2023. These are the only regulation losses since the trade deadline. So think about the sense of urgency that the Panthers had coming out of it. And we got to ask, do you think that 6-0-1 stretch that the Panthers were on before these two, do you think that the tank is fully empty for this team? Oh, hold on. You're on mute. Hold on. Oh.
No problem. No, I don't think so. I think that, we had some injuries. With Sam Bennett being out, you can definitely tell that the team is different just because you don't have the top two centers on your team, and it's tough to go against, the Toronto Maple Leafs, against, any team like that.
Fair.
But at the same time, other guys got to step up, and I'm still looking to see who is actually going to step up. I'm not going to put anything on Duclair right now because I can tell he's still getting his feet under him. He's still getting ready for, in game mode and everything. But, you have your second year Lundells that need to step up. You got to have, your bottom people, outside of Eric Staal, has more goals than Huberdeau still. They got to step up as well. They got to at least get a goal or two a game to really help out your forwards. And, as you said, we can't rely on, the other scoreboards that are going on. You got to take care of business. And if Florida has to go, 8-2 or 8-0-2 in the final 10 games of the season, in a season where they haven't won 4 in a row and they've only won 3 games, maybe 2 or 3 times, it's a tall task. Now, is it out of the realm of this team doing that and pulling together and being able to do it? No, they can definitely do it. They just need to be healthy and they need to play the right way.
Yeah, and it doesn't like I've preached so many times on the show. They do have all the playoff teams that are currently in are the home games for the Panthers. And here's a little bit of perspective. The Tampa Bay Lightning got destroyed tonight by the Ottawa Senators. Why does that matter? It's because the Maple Leafs winning and a Tampa Bay Lightning losing. What does that mean for the Maple Leafs? Locked into the second spot in the division with 2 games in hand on the Lightning. Mm-hmm. There is another game next Wednesday against the Panthers. There will be a game on April 10th, which don't forget to enter the contest for the giveaway for that game, ladies and gentlemen. Which there's opportunity there for the Maple Leafs to rest some players too. Also, Morgan Riley didn't play tonight for the Maple Leafs. Let's that of note for Toronto. So that's a little relevant. But let's go to the matchup on Saturday. The Panthers haven't won a game against the New York Rangers, and it's just been it's just a matchup that's just really tough. Of course, very. And 3 great lines that they can go out and 2 power play units where some of the people on power play 2 can be placed on power play 1 on most teams. Of course, we know the additions of Vladimir Tarasenko, Patrick Kane, and all that. Of course, the net front presence in Chris Kreider, the Breadman, Artemi Panarin, Mika Zibanejad, and of course the kids, Philip Hedl, Alexei Lafreniere, and then of course if he can get going, Capo Caco, and of course probably the most important player, Igor Shesterkin, the goaltender. And Panthers, they have a hard time. They've had a hard time against Igor, even though 2 of the games last year they had 3 third period goals, but one of them came too little, too late on one of them in a losing effort. But it's just. I don't know what else to say other than must have points for this Panthers team.
Definitely. And, this team has been resilient all season. I mean, you look at, their back-to-back games or, coming off a regulation loss or now 9-1-1, I believe. And, you just try to think of, the positives and everything. Is the team going to be healthy by Saturday? I mean, as we were talking about, Sam Bennett came out and skated this morning. It didn't feel right, so he wasn't playing. So maybe another day or two of rest, he'll be inserted into the lineup. And hopefully some defensive zone, assignments get figured out, and the forwards actually play a complete game and actually come down and help the defensemen. And what it will come down to, in my opinion, on Saturday, don't take penalties. Just for one game this season, please do not take any penalties. Give your actual self a chance to win the game, because if they start racking up 3 or 4 or even 5, that game's going to be over. New York will be at least 2 of 5 or 3 of 6 if that's the case. So on top of that, Bob's been magnificent, so he's going to give them a chance to win. But again, the team's got to play smart. They got to grind away, as Maurice has said, and they just got to play the right way.
Yep, and power play percentage for the Rangers is 10th in the NHL. So definitely a unit that's very, very lethal. 5th in goals against in the entire NHL. That's not a surprise when you're looking at that. Goals for, they're around the top 10. The Panthers are actually in the top 5 as far as that. But that's just the most important thing, is just do your best to stay out of the box for this team, because this team, not the best at 5-on-5, but they've gotten better last year. Outside of as opposed, they were better this year than they were, of course, last year. Made a lot of progress there, but of course, it comes down to when you're down a man and what you and going to the box for itty bitty mistakes of just attention to detail. And the Rangers are 7-2-1 in their last 10. So it's a tall task, but hey, the Florida Panthers just beat the New Jersey Devils last week at home when they had the best road record coming into FLA Live Arena. So is it out of the realm of possibilities? No. And this Cats team all season has been a team that they haven't died. They just haven't. And they haven't gone too much out of the race. They haven't the other teams haven't separated themselves. So I think it's going to continue, even if the Panthers win and the Pittsburgh Penguins lose to Washington, or even if they drop this against Dallas. It won't. I don't think it'll say one way or the other of who's going to carry, who's going to break away with that second wild card spot.
I actually don't think the Isles nor the Pittsburgh Penguins are going to get away or get very far. It's just a feeling. I mean, Pittsburgh might get a run going because they have Sidney Crosby, and it seems like over the last couple of games he's really kind of put the team on his back, and that's why he was the best player in the world for so many years. I'm still trying to see, what the Islanders exactly have outside of Sorokin. I mean, I know they traded for Bo Horvat and everything, and that they're
Brock Nelson's hurt.
Yeah, Brock Nelson's now hurt and everything. So it makes you wonder, like, how much longer are they going to be able to sustain their playoff spot? And, just think about where we were, like you and me talking about this Panthers team and about the season, like back a couple months in December. Season was over. People wanted Maurice fired. Bob was terrible. It's just, there was so many negative things after so many positives of the previous season that now we're still 1 point out and people still feel like the sky's falling. But, I'm just thankful that we're only still 1 point out as of this recording before the score goes final over there in Dallas. But, this is what it's all about, guys. It's going to go down to the wire, and it may only take 92 points to get into the final wild card. So everybody keep your heads up. It's still possible. And, hopefully we'll be seeing Boston in the first round.
Yeah, hopefully not. And the New York Islanders will be facing the Columbus Blue Jackets on Friday, and then the Sabres at home on Saturday. They'll be playing at the same time as the Panthers at 5 p.m. And then after the Panthers game goes final, the Pittsburgh Penguins will be welcoming in Alexander Ovechkin and the Pittsburgh Penguins to PPG Paints Arena. But Nick, I want to thank you so much for joining me on another edition of Fairbanks Friday. Thank you so much for joining me. Tell everybody where they can find you online.
Armando, thank you again for having me on again for Fairbanks Friday. Hopefully, the team can pull out a big win on Saturday and kind of redeem themselves over the last 2 games. But if you guys want to follow and kind of, get on this whole what's going on with Pride Night thing and everything, have a conversation about that, you guys can DM me or follow me at Prudentious0 on Twitter. So, Armando, thank you again.
Thank you as always, and I'll see you next Friday, my friend.
See you next Friday.
And if you like what you're hearing, please subscribe to the podcast to be notified every single time the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast jumps into your podcast feed. Don't forget to also subscribe to the other shows on the Locked On NHL network, including Locked On NHL, Locked On Fantasy Hockey with Flip Livingstone and Stu Roden, and Locked On NHL Prospects. Thank you for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. And for your second listen of the day, make sure to listen to today's edition of Game to Game NHL. Every moment, every top performance, every result. Locked On Game to Game covers every game from across the NHL with local analysis that only Locked On can deliver. Follow Game to Game on Locked On NHL, available on the Odyssey app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. So I'm Armando Velez with Nick Fairbanks, and you've been listening to Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Where's your team every day?